Okay, I want to talk to you very briefly about the role of the director, the designer, and the actor. As part of your second assignment, you need to pick one of these, and you need to apply the knowledge about these different roles to the script, The Tempest. So you will take on a role, and then knowing the storyline and knowing the themes and knowing the characters and things like that, you will decide upon the role that you want to take, and then you're going to write an essay based around that role and how you would apply your knowledge of that role to The Tempest, and pretty much describe how you would put on that performance if you were the director, or how you would act a role, a character, if you were an actor in The Tempest, or what kind of design you would do for your stage or your lighting or your costuming or so forth if you were a designer for The Tempest. The information I'm giving you now is very broad brushstrokes, and I'm also going to put a link to some other websites that you can look at, which give you a bit more detail around these roles, and of course you can do your own research as well around what these roles actually entail. I'm going to start with the director. So obviously as the director, you have a script. In our case, it's going to be The Tempest. And with that script, you then have to decide your direction. And what I mean by this is the style of the play that you're going to put on. And obviously this style, needs to be in keeping with the type of play that you have, the type of script that you have. So with the director, if you're going to direct The Tempest, like some of you have seen, I showed you a physical theatre style that has already been portrayed of The Tempest. But you don't necessarily have to do it in that way. You might choose to do a script in a very realistic way, using a lot of Stanislavski's techniques and making it as true to real life as possible. You might decide that you're going to take an absurdist kind of a style and recreate a play using a lot of the absurdist sort of techniques. Or maybe you want to do alienate the audience and look at using some Brechtian techniques. You basically need to decide, step one, how am I going to portray this if you're the director? What am I going to lead the audience to see through my interpretation of this play? I guess after that you're going to hold auditions. Once you've got a really clear wrap around what the characters are and what sort of physicalities you want for your characters, what sort of style you want for your characters, the way you want them to be portrayed, then you're going to be holding auditions and creating your cast. Once you cast your characters and decided on your style, then you're going to start creating some broad brush strokes around the design features, around the costuming and the lighting and the stage design and so forth. It is up to the director to come up with a basic vision, and then they will work with the other designers, so that might be the other role that you might take on, and the other designers take that little bit of an idea and then they're going to flesh it out and make it bigger and make it more detailed in their design. So it is the director's role to work with all those designers, with the makeup designer, the lighting designer, the stage designer, and so forth. Of course, the director blocks the play, the director leads rehearsals, and basically brings everything together. Now, if you're going to look at the theatre designer, there's many different types. You could be, like I said before, you could be a lighting designer, a sound designer, a costume designer, makeup designer, and there's also, the use of digital tech these days. So maybe your role might be in using digital tech to portray things within the play. When you're taking on this role of a theatre designer, you have to be thinking not only about what your director's vision is, because you have to keep within the boundaries of what the director wants to see happen, particularly around style, like I mentioned before, but also about what impact are your choices going to have on the audience. So, what style costuming are you going to choose to impact on the audience? If for example, if you wanted the audience to view a a young man as an innocent and sweet and, you know, almost vulnerable young man, what sort of clothing would you costume this person in? You know, would it all be strong and dark and, you know, making the man look bigger than, you know, bigger than life? Or would you try and make it more subtle and lighter, and sometimes maybe the costume might even look slightly big on the person to make them look smaller and maybe weaker? You've got to make these decisions regarding, you know, what choices you make and how they're going to impact on the audience. You also need to keep in mind that the choices that you make around any parts of these design aspects will have an impact on the audience in what they understand in regards to the era that the play is set in, or what the setting actually is. Is it an inside setting, an outside setting? Is it a fantasy setting? All those sorts of things. Now, in a smaller sort of production, you might have a theatre designer who does all of those things. They might do all the lighting, all the sound, all the costuming, but in your bigger productions, you're going to have those roles broken down and they'll be more specific, and they'll be given to more, sometimes a team of people to come up with the, you know, the stage design, or to work on the stage design. Or you might have a whole lot of makeup designers who are led by one designer. You know, depending on how big it is, and the budget, obviously, will come down to how many people you have involved. Actor, well, I mean, you probably know a reasonable amount about the actor. I guess the biggest thing to think about here is the actor needs to bring their own style to the play, of course, but they also have to work under the you know, the director's vision, basically. The director will be telling them what style they want them to do the play in. So once they've read the script, they've understood the character that they're playing, they're going to need to then bring their own ideas and their own movement and their own voice to the character that they are playing. So if within the Tempest, if you are deciding to take on the role of an actor in this, what you would need to do is you would need to really look into the character that you would be portraying and think about the style that the play is going to be performed in. And then once you've got those, then start to think about how you would move your body. What sort of character are you trying to portray to this audience? What kind of voice would you be using? You know, would there be particular places in the stage that you would use? Would there be particular ways that you would interact with other characters within the play? Those are the sorts of things that you would need to think about if you were taking on an actor's role. Obviously, in general, you would need to learn lines, and you know, you might research the era that the play is put in. You might do some people watching and see how people move and decide upon, you know, one particular type of person. And, you know, maybe you're trying to portray a business person, so you might go and sit down a main street in the city and watch all the people who are walking out of some of the big corporate offices, how they hold their bodies, what clothes they wear, the way that they talk, the way they interact with people. You might do research around your character that way. So there's some broad sort of brush strokes around the director, the designer, and the actor. I suggest you pick one, do a little bit more research around this, and once you have decided on the area that you're going to go in, then obviously you need to start thinking about how you're going to apply that knowledge to the script, The Tempest.